Welcome to Cougar Land. We're back in Cougar Land. We're going back many, many years, bringing back the top DJ of the teen club. Actually, I don't know if you were a DJ or not. I'm just messing with you. But Mike Walker, we played basketball together. Your family was the Netflix of the area. I'll get into that a little bit later. But man, it's good to see you. How
It's
many
great
years?
to see you.
How many?
It's a thrill, Lenny. And it's funny because I just watched Lisa's, and so you'll have to forgive me for calling you Lenny because
It's okay.
it's natural, but um, it's an honor for me for you to ask me to do this, mainly because I'll probably get the least number of views and clicks because a lot of Cougars are going to go, I don't know who the hell that guy was. Mainly because I left after ninth grade, but you and I go back to sixth grade, right?
Sixth
And
grade. Were we in the same sixth grade? Were we with
Mr. Benanti,
Mr.
yes.
Benanti? He was awesome. The
We
basketball player.
sang, dude. We sang songs together in sixth grade.
Oh my gosh, I forgot I was such a great singer back then, or was I? Maybe not. But we went to
Well,
Toss in the Snow together too then, probably, right?
we did, yeah, yeah. In fact, see, that's another thing when that came up earlier, and it reminded me that I actually turned off. I hit the emergency switch. So on the pommel lift
Hmm.
going up, uh, I don't know if you remember this, but you get right to the top and then you kind of let go and then the ground kind of levels off and you go on about your way. Well, I let go of that pole just a little too soon and started going backwards and I panicked and I just fell over on my side to get out of the way. And there was a pole and I just reached my hand, pushed myself back up and started to ski away, and all these people yelling at me in Italian and screaming and gesturing, and I didn't know what was going on. And lo and behold, on top of that pole was the emergency shutoff button. And so, what are you gonna do?
That Palma lift over in Monte Bondoni.
Yeah,
Um, you take that little scoop. It's like a little puck between your legs off a
yep,
pole. And
like a
supposed
frisbee,
to,
right?
and you're supposed to stay balanced. It wasn't that well thought out. I later tried T-bars. They had both of those things used to freak me out. I had that same experience where I let go too early and I'm sliding back in the hill, knocking into other people. Like right at the top, okay, I'm going to pop off now. Oh, wait, I don't have enough momentum. Or you hold on to it too long and it's about to drag you through that, that wheel into the wheelhouse and maybe grind you up or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know why that thing was so damn terrifying. But you
Usually
talk
there'd
of
be a couple
good.
people on the side that had fallen off that didn't make it that you goofed on if you got past them.
I that I went in there. So I think my dad took us up to another place to go skiing, and I didn't really ski. I mean, I went down a very small bump of a hill, like the bottom of the ski slope.
I was the
I
best
stayed,
snowplower ever.
I stayed balanced for like 100 yards. I go, I can ski, but I had not come down a hill. I had not taken a pommel lift, and I showed up there, and I go, I know how to ski. They go, okay. So they go, you ready to ski? I go, yeah, I'm ready to ski. I figured it just worked out automatically, right? So I got these skis and I don't know, these pants my mom gave me, these like those tight ski pants, right? Anyways, they're like, okay, let's go. So we start going down the hill and I'm like, okay, we're going. How do you stop? And also I'm like, wow, I fly, I'm buried in a bunch of powder. And I'm like, oh crap. So then they have us go down that side hill. I remember that
Yeah,
side hill where
yeah,
they
yeah,
test
yeah,
you out
yeah.
and you're supposed to turn. And I'm like, I couldn't turn. And I almost ran into the instructor and I fell back and went between his legs because he had his legs apart. And I'm like, oh, and they kept me there for about one more day until I just flew off some ledge and just, landed head first. And my pants were ripped and it was cool, but not the sixth grade.
Look,
Fifth, that was the fifth grade version.
look, skiing, golf, and fishing have one thing in common, and that is it doesn't matter if you suck at it. If you got the right outfit, it doesn't matter. All right.
That's
So if
true.
you look good skiing, and when you weren't actually skiing, people were like, hey, that dude must know how to ski.
Oh, I mean, you got to say for the European slopes, there was a lot of regalia. It was about, oh, I got the really cool tight pants with the knee pads that wrap around the sides and the neon, and yeah, it's like your outfit could look really cool, and you suspected if that person's that dressed up, they must be amazing.
And
That's how it was, right?
and then especially with Class in the Snow, another thing that just it's funny. It'll happen during this conversation. Just things pop back in that I just never would have otherwise remembered. But the rest of the winter after Class in the Snow, I wore my ski jacket to school with my patch on it,
Oh, the
and
little Class in the Snow patch.
I was proud of that jacket.
Well, I mean, you don't realize at the time how unique that experience was. Out of 350 million people in America, we're a handful. I don't know how long Mrs. Martin, ran that for, but probably, who knows, maybe let's give it 5 years, 5 groups of kids. Let's say that there's maybe 200 kids that ever experienced that, if that, maybe less. And there's 350 million people that don't know what the hell Class in the Snow is, if you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, it's unique, Lynn. I think you're gonna, fun little, it'd be a fun little as this podcast I believe is going to explode because you do so well with just this kind of conversation. But be a fun little drinking game. I propose is to keep a stick figure count of how many times during our conversation you'll hear the word luck. Right? I heard Derek say it a lot. I heard Lisa say it a lot. I heard you say it a lot, and I know we all feel. I mean, whether we got it at the time or it took years later, I think we all have come to realize um, it's irreplaceable. I mean, it's irreplaceable what we went through. I mean, hell, even if you didn't enjoy it, it was unique and
Yeah.
yeah, and and I wish my son could have that. It's not possible. It's a different world and a different time. But yeah, it was awesome. And like I said, I didn't. So we'll get to this in a minute. A year ago, I was in Vicenza.
Oh, wow. You went back.
A year ago exactly, like this week, a year ago, I was in Vicenza, and first time I'd been back in. Um, I'd gone back once after I left, but really the first time. And anyway, in the foyer, they have a painting. I took a picture of it. It's a painting of the last class to graduate at the Teatro. I think it was, I want to say it was '05 or something. I can't remember the year. They don't do it there anymore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so that's something that I would love to have had is to get my degree on that stage. Um, didn't work out that way, but again, ironically, with Derek and Lee, I ended up graduating Heidelberg High School. So even in terms of being a military brat, I hit the lottery with the two places that I was just very fortunate to live.
Heidelberg is a great place. It's not like second place. It's a different thing. And, if you're going into your teens, Heidelberg, there's more. I mean, you had better beer. You had more discos, they had more discos. I don't know. I mean, there's some things. Italy had a lot of great things. I'm not going to downplay it, but there was reasons why I wanted to go there. And you guys had Burger King and McDonald's and we didn't. We're like, pizza again,
Yeah, Heidelberg, we even had our own, everything is so, if you went to Vicenza, it's like a tattoo that you never get rid of. You went to Vicenza and Heidelberg, I think we had even a lower degree of it. We were very disliked. We were disliked throughout Germany amongst the other American kids for funny reasons that I know you can appreciate. For one, so it was headquartered USERA. A lot of generals, a lot of colonels, a lot of officers, and a lot of officers' kids, and so we had like all of our sports uniforms matched.
Oh wow!
Remember,
Yeah.
like Aviana would come down, and I mean, some kids would have a white helmet, and some would have blue, and some had white pants and red pants. I mean, if you just had a uniform that looked cool, then it didn't matter. The rest of the team
it didn't matter. No, you were looking cooler on the field.
Our cheerleaders had so we kind of were we were disparaged in a lot of towns on road games, but it was a lot of fun.
So you finished school there, and you left Vicenza in ninth grade. I guess your pops got transferred over, right? Were you anywhere before Vicenza? Like, were you stateside or were you?
My dad was in Fort Harrison, Indianapolis, and he came when I was in fifth grade. I was playing intramural basketball, and he came to pick me and my buddies up to give us a ride home. And my dad had a, we're from southeastern Virginia, and he had an accent, Virginia accent. So he would say certain words, he just had that accent. And we were driving to the house, and he told me that we were going to be moving. And he said we were going to move to Italy, was the way he said
Italy. Yeah.
Italy. And I started thinking, I was trying to figure out what county in Indiana Italy was. I'd never heard of that town before. And when and this is when my buddy's in the car and I'm a fifth grader, and he explained to me, he's like, no, the country in Europe, we're moving to Italy. And I cried like a baby for like 2 days. I'm like, I don't want to do something. What do you, that's crazy. And
Right.
so only to Indiana, and then a year, unfortunately, in my sophomore year, back to Indiana, and then as quick as possible, we got a move to. I spent an hour and a half at Mannheim High School, and then ended up at Heidelberg. So yeah.
That was a pretty place. I went up there, visited some friends, actually, former Vicenzians. Yeah, and it was nice to see them, the Marcuses, Frankie Marcus, his mom, and we saw them up there, and it was. I thought, wow, man, Heidelberg's pretty cool. But what it was is because I went from New Hampshire at 3 to Germany in a Air Force base, Spangdahlem Air Force Base. And my dad's sitting around there. He's coaching the high school. We're living on their version of Villaggio, the housing barracks, whatever it is. And then, it was just blah. And I think by age 5, he'd get an offer like, oh, warm weather? Yeah, let's go to Italy. We hauled ass down there. And, Italy, at first, I thought I could speak Italian. So I go, how does it sound? I'm figuring out German already. And they're going, moon. I go, moon must be Mona, but that actually means fuck. So that's the wrong. So I'm like, hey, look at the big fuck in the sky. Hey, sorry guys.
Yeah, and hand gestures.
Right.
Yeah, hand gestures are a little tricky too.
Yeah, I've learned those. I still do them. They think, what are you, some motivational speaker? Whoa, you know what I mean? But it's the Italian thing. It gets into you. You're describing something. The soccer ball, the round one, and it's like you're into it, right?
Try giving directions to someone without moving your hands. It's impossible, right?
It's true. But
since I don't want to come to Cougar land and talk about Germany, but I will give you a couple quickies that tie the two together. So in my senior year, in my senior year, a friend of mine, this girl who was a friend of mine, she went to Greece with a group, and I don't remember why, Lynn. It was, I think she was like a youth counselor, and it was just a group of youth counselors, American youth I don't remember. She goes to Greece, she comes back, she has a great time, and she says, Mike, I need to talk to you. She said, first of all, she had fallen head over heels for some boy, and he just swept her off her feet, and she couldn't stop talking about it, and had to tell me about it because he was from Vicenza. And I said, really? I said, that's interesting. It had been a couple years since I'd been there. And I said, really, who is it? And I hope he watches this one day, because he'll get a kick out of this story. He'll remember this, I know. She said, yeah, his name is David Dinges. She was like, do you know him? And I was like, yeah.
David Dinges. He was
again, Mr. Benanti, 6th grade.
Yeah, David Dinges. He had some girls into him for sure. He was, and he was a great athlete too. And I
heard he did well.
I get to hang out with him. He met me in San Francisco about a year or so ago. We went for a long walk. We're just huffing, hiking it through there. Like, why are we going to pay Uber $30? We can walk these 2 miles. Because it was peak time or something, and it was stupid. It was a nice walk coming back from Golden Gate Bridge. But
he ended up he ended up coming up on the train New Year's. So this will be New Year's Eve 1985, my senior year, our senior year. He was in Heidelberg to come up and see his little girlfriend, and I picked him up at the train station, and we did. You know, I welcomed in 1986 with David Dinges, so that was a treat.
Oh wow. So he came up there. See, I didn't know this. We'll have to dig deep into the secrets of David Dinges. Now, David became a school principal for Dodds, and he was actually in Korea, and he was over in Germany, and he's still kind of related to that profession, still working for Department of Defense. I'd say a lot of
Yeah,
people
he's down in Northern
came in,
Virginia now. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot of people became similar to their parents, or they went the total opposite. Me, as much as I've tried to be different, like I'm going to be a businessman. Well, I've owned gyms. That's pretty much like dad. Doesn't matter. A gym's a gym, right? Worked with a
Right.
lot of athletes. Well, that's the same thing. So as much as I try to be different, there's too much the same. I'm not going to be like him. I'm not going to be a big executive. I'm going to be a baker. Okay. And go out, become a baker, and all of a sudden you own this huge executive professional corporation of bread. And all of a sudden, wait, you're a businessman too. Oh, but I thought I was just going to be baking the bread. And that's kind of how it works. But,
Yep. Yep.
I think a lot of kids in Italy wanted to go to Germany because Germany had McDonald's, Burger King, whatever was this based on the scarcity principle. If there was something cool in America you couldn't get your hands on, I remember telling people, hey, man, bring me a Big Mac back from Germany, put it in the cooler, man. I'll give you $10. It's like you wanted, and it's just a damn hamburger. And we probably could have figured out the recipe. I mean, they did have the Apes burger for a while where they made something like that at the snack bar.
Yeah.
But things like that. And like I said earlier, I craved commercials because that was America. Like when I go back to the States and every 2 years and I'd be a little kid and we're like, cartoons, commercials, wow, go to Toys R Us, buy the new $6 million man. And then you go back to Italy, they're like, hey, aranciata, molto bene, very nice. And you're like, okay, where's the cool stuff here, man?
There's nothing funnier though than an AFN commercial, especially when they would visit the post offices and the post office workers would wave,
Oh
or
yeah.
they would do the OPSEC commercials where the soldier gets a little too much to drink in the trattoria and starts telling his family, and the bartender is just cleaning the glass, listening to those are great commercials.
That was, I remember the Be All That You Can Be and the guys working out. Like it was all, I had to put those in there. I had to take commercials out. I worked at SCB, so that was my coex job. I'd have that a couple hours. I loved it, man.
They had like an army recruiting commercial. It showed tanks rolling through the forest, and it was playing Pink Floyd "Have a Cigar." And every time I hear that song, it just I just kind of giggle.
You just want to join the army and drive a tank.
Right.
Did you ever go into the service, or did you just go in the civilian sector?
I didn't, man. I didn't. I floundered after graduating college. I had no plan, and
Who did?
a buddy of mine who I went to school with in Germany. He was my college roommate. His dad he got me an interview down in, and so I sent just earlier today. I sent Derek Gould an email. I lived in Huntsville, Alabama. I went down there and became a contractor for the Army, and lived there for quite some time. And now we're here in Maryland.
So you're a contractor for the Army too?
I am.
Do you work in a different sector, a different thing than MWR? What do you do in the military?
Yeah, I'm just like I support. Ironically, my customer is still a Redstone Arsenal Huntsville, but yeah, I support. I help the Army manage weapon systems, scheduling and cost and boring stuff like that. But the check cashes, so it's worked for a while.
That's cool. I mean, the thing is, I think some people are like, well, I didn't get to do what Susie or Billy or Johnny did. I don't give a damn what you did, man. I've had so many ups and downs where, here's the thing. You could have had your own frig. You could have made it to TV. It's the Mike Show. And you're jumping motorcycles over Shark Tanks. But who remembers Evel Knievel, right? I mean, let's be real.
Right.
I do.
Right.
Everybody on this podcast does. My point is, so I don't know if some people thought I'm really trying to make the next Joe Rogan podcast. I'm trying to talk about the experience, man, the before and after, because like what you just mentioned, you come back and you have this uncertainty. I had no clue. All I knew is I had two things. I want to be rich and I want to go to California. I don't know why I want to be rich because we weren't rich and I wanted to know that experience. But the truth is, I think some things like wealth, you're often born into it more than not. You can do pretty well and make yourself to the middle class and do a little better than the average person. And then you realize, hey, man, I made X amount of dollars. And then you realize there's billionaires. And you realize that you're just the big fish in a small pond. And you need to focus more on the quality of your life, how you live your life. Because in the end, no matter what you make and what you have, it is about your experiences. I mean, that's the thing, right? But we have such a strange semi-narcissistic culture with the internet and people seeking social acceptance based on their like meter. But the truth is that that doesn't matter, because somebody, you can get 9,000, you could be a pretty woman and get 9,000 likes on your picture. But when you go to the grocery store, there's not 9,000 guys like, hey, stop the traffic. Like they have, they shut down the roads, that's just the internet. People are like, click, click, click. It's not the same as human interaction is my point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my big motivators when I was young was fear. Like I didn't have some plan to become a army contractor. No one in their right mind does that.
Right.
I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay bills. Right? I was in fear for the first 10 years. I just wanted to figure out a way to pay rent and pay bills. And, I heard this analogy one time that stuck with me is, when you get in a speedboat and you go full throttle and the speedboat pops up in the air and you can't really see in front of you because you're going so fast. But you're going. And then once it kind of gets up to speed, the front kind of lays down and now you're cruising and now you can see where you're going. And that's kind of the way it went for me is I was blind for a few years, but I worked real hard and eventually the front of that boat came down.
Well, for me, I had gotten some mischief because I was hanging around after high school and just hanging around some of the wrong people, at least so perceived by these policemen that thought I was this really evil person that I wasn't. And I mean, it's funny. I think I get, hashish of all things. I get caught with some hash. Now, some people are so worried about their stuff. I don't care, man. It's all good, So I live in California. You can walk down the grocery store and buy a huge bag that would get you 50 years in jail in Italy. And it was so demonized. It was so scarlet letter, like he's a drug addict. Like, listen, I've drinking alcohol before. I've tried weed. One of them's easier on your body, but I don't smoke weed. I'm just telling you, of the two, physically, you don't see angry dads smacking people when they have a joint. They're like, hey, you want an extra pizza, Johnny? Yeah, I love it. Yeah, turn on that funny show. That's about what you get out of it. And then that's that. I'm not trying to push whatever. You live in both worlds. I live in the changing world.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I live in the past, right? Yeah. And I was not
being real. That's right.
I was never a drug dealer. I just had it for my personal consumption. We're talking like a joint, right? No big deal. Right.
You never filed taxes for it, right?
Right. I was gonna take over Vicenza and pollute the world with this shit. Okay, right. So let's just be realistic, right?
Right.
So I took off and I lived in Canada, and then I'm like, I'm living in Canada. I'm in trouble. I had to sign a waiver to join the military, and they're like, okay, we give you clearance. I ended up getting top secret clearance later. So, what does that tell you? You know what I mean? What happens in Italy over something stupid doesn't matter, but the difference is I'm sitting there in Canada, I go, I want to go to California, maybe I can join the military. I'm not joining the army, because all I did is have the CID following me. A kid, come on, pick a better criminal, man. I was not that guy, but the reputation or nothing else to do, you're like building a case on somebody, right? Now, am I mad about it? Nah, I think it's all funny. Because I got to California, that's what I wanted anyways, because you and your father kept giving me great videotapes about what life could be like once you come over to, the States. And I'm like, oh, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Thanks, Mike. I'm going to do that. Oh, Valley Girl. Wow, the girls are pretty. Everybody's cool, man. They talk this crazy language. I want to go live this life. Oh, this looks really neat. That's where I'm going. But, you know, the Navy was something I never thought I would do. And I said this earlier, like you go to Navy base, they look disorganized for some reason. But because the way the linear organization of the Army, this perfect Lego box as to this sprawl of the Navy, it was a different thing. And I go, oh, in the Navy, I don't know. Okay, because I tried to go in the Air Force. They go, you've had a couple of things happen. We can't put you in here. You're not a Boy Scout. I go, okay, I'm not a Boy Scout. You're
Good
right.
enough for the Navy, though, right?
Right. The Navy, the guy sitting in the recruiting office, he's like Frank Sinatra. You know, he's got his feet up on the desk, almost like a pompadour. He's got two pretty ladies in there talking. He's like, yeah. And they're talking to him like he's Elvis. And he's like, hey, man, want to join the Navy? It's cool. And I'm like, whatever.
Poster of Thailand in the background.
He's like, hey, the Navy pays you to party and travel the world. I'm like, fantastic. So
Yeah.
for the first few years, that was me. And then the next 3 years, I was squared away. So it's just, you know, it's the growing thing. But I did get to California. I did not land in Southern California, in Hollywood or Orange County on the beaches, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. Northern California is way different culture, a lot of intellectual people, a lot of colleges, less of that.
Two different states, kind of, if you think about it.
Right. Very, very bizarre. But that's how I got here. And I'm like talking to you guys. But also my point is this, is to show that I'm not perfect and I'm not some friggin' celebrity. And some people are worried about coming on here. Like, don't be afraid of anything. Social media, fake news, fake stuff. This is the real news. This is real people. That's why I'm making this crap. You know what I'm saying? I'm not to talk conspiracy either.
It would be an honor for me to be trolled. all the comments are going to go, this guy never went there. Who is this guy?
Well, you knew some people. You knew you were in class. What, Sheila Henderson?
I went to her birthday party like 3 years ago. She lives out in Northern Virginia. She sent me a invitation to her birthday party, and I said to my wife, I'm like, well, we're gonna freaking go. And it was her husband was great there. It was so fun. And again, I talked to her since I left Italy, and this is just like this, Lynn. You know,
right.
40, I mean, we're closer to 40 years, and we're talking like it's 1983. Like there's no gap. There's no So here's another good one for you. A little tie back to sixth grade. So my freshman year at Old Dominion, I went to Old Dominion University in Virginia, and let's just for hypothetically say that it's possible that I might have been out one evening at some parties, possibly. And at the end of that night, I was with a couple buddies of mine. We go into, my dorm was at one end, and we were at the other end of campus in this other dorm, and they wanted to go see somebody. And I just wanted to go back and go to sleep. I wasn't up for it, but what the hell? I'm sitting in somebody's dorm room, and I'm worn out. And I'm sitting with my elbows on my knees, and I'm looking down at the floor, and I'm just listening to all this commotion and really not caring about any of it. And I heard this conversation. I heard this guy talking, and the voice just struck. I was like, I know. I was like, that's a very familiar voice. I don't know why, and I can't place it. I'm sure we've all been in that spot where you hear, I'm like, God dang it, I know that voice. And I looked up, and I couldn't, it just wasn't, the light bulb wasn't going on, but I knew the voice. And eventually I looked up, and the conversation broke up, and I went over and I said, your voice is very familiar. I said, do I know you? I said, what's your name? And he looks at me and he smiles and he says, Mike, it's Ivan Doliani.
You didn't recognize Ivan, huh? No?
And I did, and I was like, you gotta be, like out of the blue, out of nowhere. There he is. And again, Mr. Bonanti, sixth grade. So me, you, Dinges, Ivan, Sheila, all
Schuberg.
in that same.
I think Schuberg was there too, Ralph Schuberg.
Ralph Schuberg was a year behind us. He was in Mrs. Benante's class
Was
in
he?
5th grade.
Well, he ended up at the same year as me for graduation, though. For some reason, I don't know that.
I always thought, well, maybe he was over next door, Mr. Pellerito's room.
He
I
might have
always
been.
thought
He
he
might
was
have
a
been
year
in
behind.
Pellerito's. No, he was the same age.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm still friends. So, and this could be a whole nother separate podcast altogether, but I've gotten back in touch with Don Healy, who was in our class. He was in Pellerito's class. He stayed for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we've reconnected, and we're in touch weekly, regularly. He's still, one of my great friends. So,
Well, you have that perspective. When you come to the States, you're around the military world, so you could just walk up to a stranger and just talk to them and find instant rapport, something in common, right?
yeah.
If you're on post, there's a guy standing in line. Hey, man, what's up? Payday? Yeah, payday. All of a sudden, there's a conversation. Or are you from Indiana? Oh, how do you like it over here? Yeah, I used to live in Italy. Ah, me too. There's that cross up. We're travelers.
Yep.
We're in
Yep.
we're on the bus. We're on the airplane. We're traveling,
Yep.
and that's the point of this, right? So
Yep.
for me, I lived there so damn long. I wasn't the only one. There was the Millers, there was the Richies, Giuliani's. There's people there for the whole ride, and there's people that had 6, 7, 8 years, depending if their father was got 2 tours or they got a GS gig, so they could stay there more permanently, right?
I think the Spittles were there forever, right? Or
Pelleritos were there, I think, when I got there too. The teachers were there for that. That was a lifetime gig. There was not a lot of new teachers coming in out of that school. They wanted to keep that place.
Yep.
That was living. That was a nice billet that you wanted to get.
Oh yeah.
So you were there till 9th grade. Now you remember Jarrett Haney?
Oh, he punched me in the face one time. It was awesome. I love Jarrett. He also Mr. Benante's class. Good job by you. Yeah, he knocked me out. I mouthed off to him one time, and he knocked me flat out. But I think that might have been first time I got knocked on my ass.
Well, he was physically,
but he was a great guy.
I did not know he did that. Damn it, Jarrett, that was not nice. But anyways, the point is that Jarrett was so athletic, and I was just telling my dad, let him play on the Cougars. And he was like a 6th grader. I'm like, put him on the main team. Like, can he play on the team? Because the guy was good enough to play at varsity level. He was so athletic. He was prematurely fit, grown up, and very athletic. We're like, man, this will help the Cougars out. I was telling my dad. So that's why I brought him up. And even in 7th grade, I'm like, Dad, it was funny.
Yeah.
But, he didn't stay there long enough to make it even as a freshman. And I was just excited that would help either the football or basketball team do better.
Well, we had, again, as a kid, he didn't stay for high school. It would have been fun if he did. But Adrian Morrell, of course, NFL, I think he made the Pro Bowl a year. But him and his brother, Adrian and Sean Morrell, I got struck out in DYA baseball probably 200-300 times by Sean Morrell.
Really? I didn't realize they went there. See, that's the thing. That's like for everybody. That's the whole point of podcasts. You remember something I didn't remember. So we had pro ballers. I mean, we got Bonamego, who's special teams coach at the Rams right now. Vicenza was not the cultivating ground of, you're going to go pro, because we didn't have Friday Night Lights. It was too small of a team. There was no program, and it was there for the name of the game, just to play. And maybe you can go to college, but you weren't facing the 50 state size, huge, the best of the best handpicked team.
If you were really any good, your dad sent you home to the States so you could be properly coached and recruited. Shaquille O'Neal is a good example of that. But that leads me to my last quick story, tying Vicenza and Heidelberg together, or at least Germany. So I used to go to, in Mannheim, I think it was during Christmas break. Anyway, during the winter, they would have the Albert Schweitzer basketball tournament. And it was an international basketball tournament for high school age kids. And the American team was an all-star team from the States of no kidding, big time players all going to college. And I remember when the U.S. team was announced, so the American Albert Schweitzer team always picked at least one kid from DoD Europe school to,
Hmm.
and it was cool that they did that. Well, by the time, reading Stars and Stripes and getting back to Germany, lo and behold, Paul Ratcliffe is in Europe. I think he was Player of the Year, and Vicenza is European, or at least ASIL champions. And I kind of felt, I felt good about it. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I used to play pickup with Paul. And so anyway, Paul makes the team. And so I go to one of their practices, and I'm sitting there in the gym, and American team, and it's a star-studded. If I found the roster, you would know probably 3, 4, 5 of these names. So anyway, they practice. Practice is over. I went up to Paul, and we were like, "Holy cow! Hey, how's it going?" And he looks at me and he says, "You got a car?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, he goes, "Can we go to Burger King?" Right? Because
Yeah,
right,
it ties back to the scarcity. The Burger
right.
King? Yeah, right.
He was like, "Can we go to Burger King?" I said, "Hell yeah, let's go." Well, another player heard this. He was like, "I want Burger King," and I mean, he was from the States. He was just hungry.
So you were
And
Uber
so,
Eats. You were Uber Eats essentially.
so
with
we
the
pile in the
ride.
car. So it's me, Paul. I ended up taking Paul out to my house. I think we had dinner or whatever. But we go to Burger King, and jammed in the back of my car was B.J. Armstrong, who was from Chicago, Illinois, ended up playing at Iowa. He played on the Bulls with Michael Jordan. He was their point guard for a while.
Oh
And
wow.
he was the point guard of this team. And so anyway, it was cool. That's the last time I saw Paul Ratcliffe, but Paul turned out to be a pretty big basketball deal for Vicenza. Maybe they're one of their highest decorated players, at least at the time.
Yeah, yeah. People still remember him for the basketball. Those him and his brother put in a lot of time on the courts. They put their
Yep.
time in. They worked
His
their
brother
game. They
was a
were
hell of a
great.
runner too, if I remember.
Oh yeah. Who else do you
Yeah,
remember? I'm going to say some names. Let's see if you remember. Okay. Do you remember Kevin Merritt?
I do. I think he got there maybe in seventh grade. I remember Kevin. Sure.
Yeah, I know you would. How about Mark Parkins?
Oh well, of course I remember Mark. I remember Mark because no matter what the weather was, he always had a gigantic like ski coat on
Oh, the big
and
blue one. Yeah.
like two giant Diodora athletic bags. Like he always looked like he was ready for, like he could probably self preserve. He had everything. He had all of his stuff with him all the time. I don't know why I remember that, but yeah.
That's interesting. You might not even remember that, but I met Mark because we were swimming competition by my house. We would go. It was like him and his brother were really high level. Freddie and Mark were high level swimmers.
Freddie, that's right. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were the two fastest kids in Texas. Freddie at 15 was like the third fastest person or something in Italy against grown up men in swimming.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I would swim with them every day, and I hated it because we would swim 100 something laps in a heated pool, and you'd sweat in the water. You'd swim so much. I'm like, what is the point? I wasn't in there to win the race. I was just showing up for practice. It's like, it's like you go to the gym, you're lifting weights. I'm training. What are you training for? To look good at the pool. Be honest. Don't tell me like there's an event coming. Well, because we're gonna have a hacky sack competition. I need my legs, my quads really big. No, be honest.
Just enjoyed shaving.
Right. So let's see who else I can pull up. I'll throw a name at you. Well, Leah Hauser, she was on the ski trip with us. There was Leah Hauser. I've talked with her since. Her daughter's like a super golfer now. Sixth grade. Let's see, seventh
I'm
grade.
Facebook friends with Laura Wallen.
Okay, Laura Wallen, remember
She's
her?
on your coast.
Who lived near you? Who lived near you? Because you lived off on the side. See, that's the difference. Like if you were a Villaggio kid, you kind of had the socialization going on better. It's like you had more followers on Facebook, basically. Because I'm joking, but that's the analogy today. They're probably not leaving their house, going out doing what we did, like accidentally borrowing a case of spumante that was delivered to someone's front door and taking it to the cornfield for samplings. They might not have been doing that, they're probably just said, oh,
Hypothetically, it may or may not have
yeah,
happened.
perhaps. But you were out there. So where did you hang out? What was your day-to-day like in Vicenza? Where was your, I know you love
So
basketball. You were such a basketball guy. I played with you and then I was swimming and then screw this. I bounced around, but you stayed on it. You're always a jock.
well, I enjoy playing things I'm poor at, so I continue that to this day. No, when I was younger, I lived down there off Riviera Barrica, not far down the road from where the rotunda is, and I had friends over in Lingare. Don was one of them, and so I heard Lisa joke about it earlier. Riding I take like an hour and a half bike ride to go and hang out with those guys all day long and just play basketball. Like you said, play basketball, go eat ice cream, and then we moved. Our last couple of years, we were over in Camisano, and Schubert lived out there, and a bunch of
Ralph.
more certainly more Americans lived in Camisano than where I was in the first spot.
Yeah, I used to go to at the end of the year. I was just talking to Ralph earlier today. At the end of the year, our senior year, we'd go to Ralph's spot. His dad wasn't there, and he's got this house right next to a lake, a fishing lake.
Yep.
So we'd
Yep.
hop over the fence. We were pulling
Yep.
catfish out of there. It was.
Yep. So
Yeah.
here's a little trivia for you. That's exactly right. My neighbor was the guy who stocked that lake. Tang guy would stock it every 2 weeks. So here's a little trivia question for everyone watching. What was the name of the athletic store right next to that lake that was famed that people would go to kids like us would make their parents take them to Camisano? What was the name of the sporting goods store? It was a big deal back then.
Oh, for the right kind of clothes. I'm going to leave it open for them to figure that one out. But I do remember fashion trends as sports clothing goes, because let's talk sneakers. I know this is silly. People are like, what? You're talking sneakers? I want to hear more about the pizza you ate. But really, I remember the Ratcliffes had them first, and I wanted them. The top tens. We're talking basketball, right? The Adidas top tens. I had the Converse, man. Those were great. The Dr. J's, if you remember that. And then there was the Fila sweats, there was the Diodora sweats, and then there was
Sergio Tacchini.
Yeah, the Sergio Tacchini, and then there was the kangaroo ones that my dad got that were real expensive that I later inherited from him and wore to another state, and they looked at me like I was some kind of disco circus person. But
So we'll do this. We'll leave the question open to see if anyone can get the answer correct, because I know a few will. So one of the things I've done during the heavy duty part of the lockdown here recently is I took a walk down a lot of memory lanes of different kinds. I went on YouTube and watched old sports and old boxing matches and old car races and stuff. And one of the things I did, Lynn, is I went online. You ready for this? I'm going to be your first guest who has show and tell. And
oh wow, look at those. Oh, those were classic from Vicenza. Yeah, yep.
Red on white, baby.
Yeah,
I wore them twice. My kid didn't even make fun of me.
I actually gave some away recently. I had some running shoes of those because you can buy them online now.
And then the one brand that you forgot that I remember the basketball team,
Lotto,
or at least most of them, would come out. There you go.
Yeah, no, I remember. It was about sneaker culture then. Before then, sneakers, before the NBA and everybody started picking these sneakers for basketball, and now it's like Air Jordans and all this stuff. This was the beginning, right? And it's funny, like we are way on a tangent. So anybody into shoes, enjoy this. Anybody not, fast forward to the fun part now. But remember those, they used to sell them. I used to always, my dad was generous when it came to having the best running shoes or whatever for me, right? But you'd go in the PX. You remember those Adidas that had the glow in the dark green, the neon on the stripes? Yeah, I had those. I got those. Those were great. And I didn't understand, but before going back to basketball, because my parents liked to run, so I had New Balance and we'd go on these treks. And there was, there was like the canvas shoes, like the Bob Cousy, like old, like those were not even good for playing basketball. Those are so bad for your feet. People probably damaged their feet playing in the old Converse, the canvas ones. Remember those? Oh, it's a
Oh yeah.
high top sock.
Oh yeah.
There's no support on this weeble wobble. It's like,
And you actually had to lace them to the top. Like if you didn't, like you said, you could twist your ankle just walking in those things.
I think back to some of the running shoes the track team had. Like, what are those, air waffles? I mean, there
Right.
was
Right.
really for impact. Like, we're gonna really break your arches. But where would you, like, did you stay there the whole time, or did you go back to the States in the summer and come back? And when you
I
lived
went.
there?
We had home leave once. I can't. I think it was summer '81. I can't remember. Um, yeah, we went back for a couple weeks, and yeah, you want to bring back some stuff that you can brag about, like you said, shoes or music or
Yeah,
anything. And of course, as I
choose
felt like,
music or videos. Like, get some VHS tapes and put it on record on HBO, because you're taking American TV home with you, because all we have is SEB and the CNN
so
channel. Right.
and it's funny that the thing I remember about that time is, for whatever reason, there had been a shortage. You could not find blank VHS tapes, for recording movies. And my dad, bless his heart, when we went to home leave, he went to some place and bought like 4 cases of blank VHS tapes, had them shipped back home, and and then used them as barter for a variety of
Whatever.
things.
Well, I mean, if you remember back then, if there was a little video store on Post temporarily in the snack bar, okay? They
Yeah,
had this
yeah,
little wall around it. It's in the snack
yeah,
bar. You walked on the front doors off to the right. That later was pinball machines, no pinball machines, open, closed,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
So that place, I remember seeing Jaws for sale for $129 for an original Jaws VHS tape. $129 because it's an original, man. And you know that was so expensive. And then you look at the how long my uncles, my dad's family, they owned a company called Action Video, and they would run out and film the Boston Marathon, dress up as cops and block the street, and then get the video footage for some of the world's top runners. And they had one of the first video stores. They just didn't think about it. They were before Blockbuster. They just didn't think
Yeah.
about what that would be. Coincidentally, I have a camera too, and I film stuff. So how weird is that? As much as you try to run away, I had no idea, like you, what are we going to be when we grow up, right?
Yeah.
My mom would make me write stuff down. What do you want to be this year? One year it's a detective. Next year it's an astronaut. Then after watching the Pink Panther, I wrote down jewel thief, and that wearing the black outfit. But I'm a good thief because I'm helping. I'm not a thief to steal. Like, I was conflicted. I was trying. The message was confusing, right? I was a little kid.
Hard to get through all those lasers. It looks easy
Yeah.
in the movies, but it's hard.
You'd have to practice a lot of laser dancing, or you take yoga. I have no idea. But yeah, you grow up there like, what am I gonna be? And like, well, who are you is really the better question, because you can become something from what you are, and there you are. And it doesn't matter, at a certain point of your age, your ego, a good saying to me is, somebody told me, hey, here I was one day, thinking I had it all figured out at 45. Then I look back at 60 going, what a silly kid, because you get righteous at certain parts. And then as you get older, you go, oh boy, what a stronzo I was,
Yeah, it's not to get all sentimental, but it's amazing how much you find the right person, and I've been lucky to do that. And that gives you confidence that, like you said, once you have that confidence, once you got the right person in your life, and you got some things going your way, and you get that confidence, then that you don't give a crap what anyone else. You don't get, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously, you care, but you don't care, right? You don't. I only care. I've said this a bunch. I care what 2 people think. Everyone else, not so much. So
We can get along though. I'm not mad at anybody because it doesn't matter.
confidence,
Right.
confidence is a fleet. It's hard to capture. It's hard to maintain. But when you have it, it's powerful.
It's true. But the thing is, right now, no matter what anybody's doing, whatever great allocades or accomplishments, we're all in this together. We're in the COVID umbrella. It doesn't matter. You might be in a town that has a little more access, but hey, you could be in Florida. Do you really want to run to the beach with everybody and show me how cool you are? Maybe you want to think about staying home and watching the canary in the coal mine. Maybe this is fake. Maybe this is real. I don't really know because there's so much, as Trump says, fake news, fake news. Yeah, him and many other people. And there's so much news that you don't know the good guy from the bad guy. There's just nobody, just a bunch of people writing for clickbait to get people to react. So I can only
Yeah.
give you the honest opinion here because I have nothing to sell you and no political party to sell you. And I'm just your old homeboy from back in Italy. You know what I mean? So that's
It's
that's
just
what it's
Cougar
about,
land, man.
right?
It's just Cougar land.
Yeah, it's Cougar Land, a place that was happy. And Cougar Land is now on the internet. It's now a virtual place because the Vicenza that we knew is no longer the Vicenza that we knew. You know?
So I, when I heard Lisa's stories, it kind of it was a little sad to kind of hear her story, and that she, the attitudes have changed so much. We were over there. I was able to take my family over there last summer, and so we got an Airbnb. We were in Rossano, just kind of north east of Vicenza. Beautiful house, cost virtually nothing, and we were only there for, I don't remember, 4 or 5 days. And so the way I tried to do it was, the first thing I had to do was I had to take my walks down memory lane, and but I also didn't want the whole trip to just be about that. I wanted to do some things that I'd never done, and so that my family, so that we have some things that are just ours, and we did that. But because of my job, I had the right kind of ID, and I was able to get on post. I wasn't able to bring my wife and son, so I got up early one morning while they were sleeping and drove on post and just drove around. And it's a different world. You've heard that.
Yeah.
It's almost, I mean, there are
It's like
landmarks there.
it's like the mega mall as opposed to when you used to go to a little tiny Foodland in Villaggio. Now it's the mega mall.
Yeah, I mean, even the gate. So for some of you guys who haven't been there in a while, everyone remembers the original main gate. And many people will remember, I guess it was after 9/11 or whenever it was, they closed that off and you had to kind of drive around the side and kind of come in the side gate. They've closed the back, held the whole back part of the post. What we knew as the back gate is inaccessible now. It's some kind of super secret something going on back there. But the main gate now of Caserma Ederle comes in, if you can imagine this, over where the Rod and Gun Club used to be, and like where Four Seasons used to be. And you come in, yeah, and you come in Four Seasons, right? I didn't even know why I thought of
Four Seasons. Yeah, it was the first class toy store. Yeah.
It was our, yeah.
Yeah. Choose Bicycle Land. That's where you get your
exactly. Bike. Yeah. But you come in there and that's like when I first came on post, I literally didn't know where I was. And then all of a sudden I'm like, boom, there's a theater. And I'm like, oh, okay. I get it now.
Find the center, find the theater, right? Right.
Yeah. But it's all very, very different, and good for them. It's ironic that 10 years ago, I would never have guessed this. Vicenza being when we were there, a smaller community. And then, where I lived later in Heidelberg was the headquarters of Europe. And here in 2020, Heidelberg no longer exists. My school's gone. All the bases are gone. And there is no American presence in Heidelberg. It's all gone. And Vicenza now has, not only Caserma Ederle, but an enormous base with significantly more troops, and it'll be there for a while. And that school is, so I don't know if you know this, but the elementary and middle school kids go to a school in Bellagio now, and what we knew as the elementary and high school building is all high school.
Wow. So it's the bigger concentration. It's weird because I was in the Navy, and a lot of the bases I was stationed at out here in San Francisco, they're all gone. We had Treasure Island, we had Alameda, we had Concord Naval Weapons Station, we had the Presidio for the Army, we had Oakland. I don't know. I don't think Oakland Army Base is still there either. So all these
Is
bases,
Monterey? Is Monterey? I don't think Monterey's
Monterey's
anymore.
still there. You're talking about like the officer school base down there, the NG.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. I stay
Okay.
at the MWR hotel there. It's really nice,
Okay.
and it's a lot less expensive than paying for a local Monterey hotel. You can just go on base, get the GI rate. I got my ID card too, so I just do that. So, and it's fun to relive the military after you've been out of it for a while, because I just did not look behind me after 25 for about 20 years. I did not look at the military at all. I didn't think about going back. Then I go back and there's that familiar feeling. Oh, you know, and it's
Yeah,
so it was for me
yeah.
was like I got to go be me, and I ran to the civilian world, you know. But I did 6 years in the Navy, and then I did all those years growing up around the military. So 23 years of having an ID card, and then I just got one about 7 years ago. So it's yeah, had this ID card for most of my life. You know what I'm saying? You still
Yeah,
have one?
yeah.
You still have one? Do you
It,
shop on
it,
do you shop on Post? Is there anything you save money on? It's not as subsidized anymore.
no, it's
You go
not.
to
It's not any
go to
different.
Costco, right?
Yeah, it's really not. Yeah, it's certainly not like it used to be. But
See,
isn't it funny? Like we are so now. Why we're so freaking old? We use phrases like this. Not like it used to be. It's funny, but it's not like it used to be.
that's true.
But
Well,
I will tell you this. So it is funny. I did, so it was one of those things where I rolled up to the school and I was going to go as far as someone would stop me. I was just going to walked up to the door. It was unlocked. I walked in, started walking around. Someone did get my attention and asked me who I was and explained and went to the office to introduce myself and to let them know I wasn't trying to do anything bad. And lo and behold, there at the desk is Miss Frigo.
yeah, like there you are.
And she didn't know me, but we talked for a while, and of course they were extremely gracious. Everything was locked up, like the gym was locked up, the rooms were locked up, but I was able to walk the hallways, and we spoke for a few minutes, and that was fun. Yeah, but
Nice. It's
yeah,
nice to go back there, but it may see some people may watching this may think that you needed 10 years there. You could be there for 2. I mean, we had a buddy that was there for like a year and a half. We still looked him up. Me and my buddy Mark went skiing with him, not too long ago, 6 months ago.
sure,
So it
yeah.
didn't matter. You were
But
all part of
people,
you were all part of the movie that everybody was in there, you know?
people left, for better or for worse. A lot of people would leave impressions on you, and like you said, maybe they were, maybe their dads were short and your paths only crossed for half a semester or whatever. But we could probably sit here for hours and tick off names, and we could probably
Who else?
cover
Who
three
else do you
quarters of, of
remember?
our of our class.
So who else did you remember, older, younger than you? Like who else was in your? Didn't you have a younger brother, right?
My brother Ryan, yeah, he was 3 years younger than me,
So was
and
mine.
yeah. So speaking of that, I did see Sean. Was it 2 summers ago, 2 or 3 summers ago? My family, we went up to Boston for a long weekend, and yeah, sent a message and said, "Hey, you got some free time?" And he and Andrea
Hmm.
uh, uh, came down and met us in downtown Boston, had some dinner, and had a great chat. Had a lot of fun just doing what we're doing now. It was cool.
It's pretty wild, huh? It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like that. We'll make time for other Vicenza Cougars. What's weird is a lot of civilian relationships never develop the same as the core ones from that high school for a lot of people. Some people might have made a better friend in the States. I don't know, but because we understood each other, because we grew up in such a unique circumstance, and because we were far removed from the rest of the culture, we get to bond in a different way. Um, trying to think who else you might have known in that era. Um, who else comes to mind? Are there?
Well, um, gosh, so um, as we got into seventh and eighth grade, so I hung out with so my main two homies back then were well, of course Don Healy, Ray Fleming, and
Remember Ray? He was a
yeah,
cool guy.
yeah, he's up in the Detroit area, and then Peter Willis. For a while, we got along. We got along pretty well. He got me in a lot of trouble, and we had some fun. He was a good basketball player.
You were
But I
not in much,
remember
you were
like
not in much trouble, not like Mr. Len over
no, you had me covered. Although I tried to rally as an older high school student, but
here. What about Glenn Jones? He played basketball with us. If
I
you
remember. I remember. Of course, I remember. Yeah, I remember him, and I remember like Herman and Rhonda Taylor.
Oh yeah, I remember
Um,
Herman and Rhonda. Yeah,
yeah, and
I gotta look them up on Facebook.
and and the other one, and this is kind of a bummer. It's I almost don't want to bring this up, but kind of a bummer because I rode the bus. I was good friends with Michelle Fulwild,
Oh yeah,
who that's a tragic story, and maybe something for another time. But she and I were, we were good friends, and yeah,
pick
I
the.
remember even back in the sixth grade, um, one of the first crazy dudes I met that really like I was just a kid from Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
the world was a very small place, and I met this kid named Errol Hausman
Oh, I
with
remember
long
Errol.
hair.
Errol Hausman, and he loved the Raiders. Yeah,
Errol Hausman
he's like
and Hank
Raiders, and I didn't
Winling.
understand the mania until I moved out here next to the Raiders. Now I understand.
Yeah, him and Hank Winling introduced me to Ted Nugent, and yeah,
Yeah,
Carmen
I,
Stevens. I'm Facebook friends with Carmen Stevens. She's hilarious on Facebook.
I remember Carmen. Yeah, I think you and I used to ride the bus together. You know those buses, those commercial buses that
We
used to
had
drop us off,
remember
and
the Green
Carmen was in there.
Machine?
Yeah, we had the green machine. We're on the same bus.
The
That
Green
Mercedes, like
Machine.
we all wanted that thing because
Like it
TV,
didn't even make noise when it moved.
and it had a TV that we never get to watch.
Yeah,
Because what were
but
you gonna? There was no satellite TV, so what were you gonna watch anyways? You know?
so we always remember the good things, right? So if you didn't have the Green Machine, remember the three or four like extremely shitty buses where you could see through the floor, you could see the road. Like we got stuck with some stinkers as well.
The army style bus with the pleather, yeah,
Like
and
yeah, one
yeah,
windshield wiper might be
they
working.
were like a beat up version of Bellagio bus, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
It
was.
wasn't always like the heat wasn't yeah, it wasn't always luxurious, but when you had the Green Machine, you were rolling.
I was gonna bring this up. Did you ever go to the teen club dances? Right? Did you ever go to any of those?
I went to a few. Yeah, the one. You know what I remember more than that is remember going, and Len, I think we did this on Bellagio, but it was probably at the DYA building across from the school. But remember the lock-ins?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
those were fun. I have a wonderful one. I'm gonna get on another cast. It's this trip, the teen club trip at 13 that I took with Mark and Kevin down to Livorno. It was just off the chain. Chaperones not watching, you know. But there was this guy that used to come through here that all the other kids raved about it. We hadn't gone there. The older kids were talking about this guy Marco Disco, some German guy that would bring in these 8 or 12 foot speakers, make it so damn loud, like you wanted it louder. It was about how loud can you get. He had these massive stacks of like concert speakers in the teen club. He's playing like Godzilla movies on the ceiling. He's got smoke machines. He's got strobe lights. He's got all this stuff to give you the real disco experience. And it was like $5 or $10. And we're like, oh, I got to go Marco Disco. Marco Disco is the best. And we went to Marco Disco and we just thought it was friggin' amazing. I know this guy, this DJ, put on this show at the
Yeah.
teen club. I mean, we didn't have a lot of rock concerts unless you went up to Milan and it wasn't always your favorite band. I know some people like Mark Parkins were made it up to Monsters of Rock up in Germany, and that was like
Yeah,
the
we were lucky with that. Yeah.
Did you go to that?
Oh yeah, and that was in Manheim, and that was right near my house. We were very fortunate. I was really lucky. I saw Sting's first solo tour, and U2 and Unforgettable Fire tour, and and I saw Run DMC and the Beastie Boys in Nuremberg, and so we were lucky in that way.
Yeah, see, we were behind the times in Italy, but that was kind of cool. But then, it's like it was funny, man. I just after you left, I started going to more nightclubs. I started going to more bars. I started looking for mischief. I mean, we just hop on a train. We're in Livorno. We're camping in the beach. Me and some of the guys, quite a few different guys like Ralph Schuberg and Kenny Poplinski and Mark Rivera and Mark Parkins and Mike Mitchell. We're all like camping on the beach, or we rent a hotel, but we didn't make it back in time because it's a pensione and they close it at 9. We're like partying out in the beach in the bonfire, over by the American beach in Livorno, but off to the side, hidden in the dunes. And it's like a Tom Sawyer thing, like, come on, bring your apples, bring your doorknobs, whatever, And that was the kind of stuff that was just amazing. And
Yeah,
sleeping in the sand without a tent, without a sleeping bag. Oh, you get a windbreaker, zip it up, wake up
you said something the other day that made me laugh because I did this. That was probably one of the most scared of my childhood, was when we snuck on the train, hid in the bathroom, and you said that, and I just died laughing, And when I got to college, and I'd go on some weekend, I'd go home with a college buddy to wherever he lived, and they sat in their grocery store parking lot drinking Boone's Farm and playing Motley Crue, and I was like, this is
it, man. This is as good as it gets. I was like, over by the Circle K, kind of like that movie, those two guys with the long hair, not dead, but
and I kept it to myself. I didn't, what do you got? I'm not gonna criticize it out loud, but I just thought to myself, I'm like, you guys have no clue, really.
No,
I'm sure they have great memories of doing that, but it ain't the same.
That's true. Now, I don't think that is, this is my peak. Like, that's my joke. Like, I showed up telling my boss and them, yeah, we're over here at this place, and there's a tower, and there's statues, and there's lights, and all this exotic booze, and we're driving this, and we're doing that. And they're like, you never did that, man. Nobody wanted to believe it. I'm talking to sailors that you're going on Westpac's, been around the world, but they never lived it like you could as a military brat, because you were stationed there and you go off the base. Nobody's carding you for alcohol or cigarettes or whatever. So you could play grown up as a kid. And it was a pretty safe environment. It's not like you were in a very dangerous neighborhood doing this. This wasn't like, it was a very safe town.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, another aspect of it that I'm proud and thankful for, is, and especially after I spent my sophomore year in the States, and even to this day, that was the worst year of my life. I was so depressed, and the thing that was cool is, and especially Vicenza was so small, Heidelberg was a little bit bigger, but during the school day, sure, you got your 2 or 3 buddies and you hang out with people of similar interest. You got the smokers, you got the athletes, you got the badasses wanting to bully, you got the smart people, you got the different groups like any other school. But what I experienced, Lynn, is that when it came to social time, you'd find yourself sitting in a bar or in some place, and you're just hanging out. You got one athlete, you got one geek, you got one rocker, you got and it was all good. And during school hours, maybe we didn't acknowledge the fact that we hung out and had fun together, but we did, and we didn't look at each other as those things.
No, that might have been your part-time costume. That was your initial presentation, but the essence of who you were was, who you became under the, like, hey, everything goes environment. But it was also, I remember sitting in the snack bar after me and some of the kids, and a lot of the kids would go out and have wild parties or whatever. And the greatest podcast would have been just whatever was said at that table at the snack bar on Sunday. Like, oh my gosh, Mark took his moped and he jumped over a ramp and he was trying to jump a car. And, it was always, there was a lot of one-upmanship to push it to the next level, because people were going, well, know what we did in Chicago, know what we did in Dallas, know what we did in California. And we would like, okay, let's see if that's scientifically plausible. We'll try it out,
Yeah.
and but that made it more adventurous, because if
Yeah.
I went to one school, there would have been one tone and there wouldn't have been so much variety. you
Yeah.
know
And I'll tell you where it's helped me. It's maybe, maybe it's the most valuable lesson of all that I learned growing up over there. Um, and not to go too far off on this tangent, but I can tell you this, that regardless of where I was in Europe, every day that I lived in Europe, we didn't, no one, we didn't care about any color of skin and race. And, we didn't think that way. We didn't talk that way. We didn't act that way.
right.
It was like it's like what I try to tell my kid. I was like, look, and I try to instill a sense of humor into him.
Hmm.
I was like, look, I want you to dislike someone for the right reasons. Like I want you to, if you have a problem with someone, you need to have a problem with someone for the right reasons. And we all had, we had problems with each other. Jared Haney knocked me out because I ran my mouth, and but it was, we didn't have, if you forgot your ID card that day and you needed to run to the PX at lunch, and you just borrowed an ID card from someone else, and it didn't matter. They didn't look a thing like you. It didn't matter. Like and I think for me, looking back on it, I'm most proud of that, maybe more than anything, really.
Oh, that's the thing. It's the military culture where we're all American, we're all one. And come back to the States, people get dispersed. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into that, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's so easy to,
yes,
have somebody try to find an edge and flip that against anybody.
yeah.
And
When I went back to the States in 10th grade, my mind was blown. The way things I heard in the hallway and the way kids
yeah,
acted, and I was really bewildered. I was so like naive, and it caught me. It just caught me so off guard, and I just couldn't believe it, and I just wanted to get out of there.
I think a lot of people had a really hard transition to the States, and some people had a great one, but a lot of people were like, whoa, it just depended where you landed and how it went. It's kind of like this. If you come to Italy and you live Vicenza as a Vicenza Cougar, you have a great experience, more than likely. But if you came to some part of Italy that has nothing to do in the middle of nowhere, then, it's like, let me show you America. And they land in some barren wasteland of nowhere, some fields like in Kansas. Not that Kansas is bad, I like Kansas, but just the middle of nowhere, just the middle
Right.
of nowhere in Kansas, where no stores, nothing to do. Like, here's America. They're like, okay, I'm waiting for that je ne sais quoi, that thing, that where, well, jump up and down the cornfield, you're in America. It's like,
Yeah.
I thought it would be more exciting than this. Or
Yeah.
somebody comes and they land in New York, or they land in Boston or California, or in the main hubs where all the activity is, and that's their perception. So
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's you brought up some new names that it's like the memory book. I gotta probably get a yearbook so I could screen share and say, oh, I know them. But the one thing I try to do this cast is people are at different phases in their life. We're all different phases, right? So I could be hitting up somebody, hey man, come on the show, and they could be going through a divorce or a passing of a family member, or losing their job or something. And hey, I'm not holding anybody to some standard where they need to be perfect. And there's no judgment from the Cougars. We're all just humans that were launched out of this cannon of the boot from Italy, right? And
Yeah.
so like, Lisa said, I would not have come on here 10 years ago because I was going through some tough times. And I respect that. And I get it. And that's
I,
why I know that not everybody's going to line up to get here because of that. And
I
You know,
thought that was
we're
very
we are
interesting.
we,
That
we are
was very
with you.
interesting. Her take on that was,
Right.
and also spot on. Yeah.
No, but we're with you. We're your family from way back when, except it's like Captain Kirk and the Enterprise because we're all on the internet. We just beam you up to the YouTube video, and here we are. But who else would you like to see on here? Who are you?
Oh gosh, Lynn. So with me being so, you kind of are going to probably over the course of doing this. I know you'll mix it up, and you're
You
going
know
to
I
pick
will.
the
Yeah.
great, the perfect mix. I'm going to fall into that. You're going to have, your Derricks and your Lisa's that got degrees there and left their mark there, and then you're going to have dinglings like me who were there that left a little early and didn't have quite that run, but yet
But
still
you
have
completed
this,
the experience, the military
no doubt.
experience. You did the whole circle, just like them, just like me.
No doubt, but you know what I'm talking. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. You got look. I'm
It's
on the
not. It's not.
Facebook.
It's not the
You got
pot.
some heavy. You got some heavy hitters on there that you got to get
Hey,
on here.
I mean, Lisa was basically a ghost for 20 years. She wouldn't touch social media, so people didn't know her. So other people got to be, you communicate more, people perceive that you're more popular. Not everybody's calling me up on the phone. Len, come over to dinner tonight. You're the coolest guy. I don't give a shit. I'm just like, hey, you want to get on here and just talk about Vicenza because it's the greatest story that ever was in my book. But there's a
No
guy
doubt.
that believes that Germany was the best. Oh my gosh, at 16, I had a Porsche. My friend owned a brewery. We had a
I did have a
castle.
Porsche, by the way.
Did you really?
I had a
Lucky you.
924. It was
Oh,
very
yeah?
lucky. I also wrecked it 10 days before I was going to ship it to the States. I totaled it driving under a truck, but I did have it for my senior year.
That's pretty exciting. Dad hooked it
Yeah,
up.
that's another podcast for another time. That's a
That's
very
pretty cool. Did you
painful
become a
story.
partier later?
I did.
Yeah,
I
was it
did.
10th grade? You went from jock like, I'm really uptight.
I'm going to
All
be
the
your first guest who is this is also a happy hour at Cougarland. So
Well, that's what Lisa wanted to do is have a happy hour Cougarland. So we're gonna do that.
yeah.
These are the one-on-ones, but I'm gonna do a happy hour Cougarland. I can have 45 people on one of these things, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Zoom,
Well, let
Zoom
me
is
ask,
unlimited. Yeah.
so you're great at hosting this and keeping the flow. And before we go too long, I want to ask you a question that I asked Sean. Um, and this would be fun to go into more if you were comfortable with it, because I think it would be of interest to a lot of the gang, and that is about your dad. So my question is this: what was it like having your dad be? Your dad is a Vicenza Cougar legend, and to a lot of us, you know,
Two sides to the coin.
may
The
you know,
winningest coach and the guy that had his own issues and I think this will go to anybody's parents that had good or bad times there. Like there was years when you're up, years when you're down. Your business is in the street bad there. You're like a Hollywood tabloid, real
yeah,
quickly. So you didn't really have privacy.
yeah,
Like if you were a teacher in the States, you'd go home and maybe you live a town
yeah.
over and nobody knew your civilian life. But if you were an army teacher, an army coach, boom, everybody's on you. You know what I mean? And there could be some,
And plus,
you know what I mean?
your dad, at least in my world, was so popular and so impactful on so many of us that being the son of that person at our same age,
To me,
maybe
he
maybe
was your
sometimes you didn't
coach.
go home and feel so great as the rest of us did,
That's true. I mean, he was your coach, but he was my dad.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
never cashed that chip. Matter of fact, I
yeah,
didn't play sports on purpose because I
yeah,
was kind of like, hey man, I'm
yeah,
not gonna play because then you think I'm getting play time because that's my dad.
yeah,
You're gonna use that excuse because you're jealous because I actually get 3 minutes in a game. Truthfully,
yeah,
um, there's some things that weren't always fair. Not that I'm trying to start the dark cast here or
yeah,
nothing,
yeah.
but there's times where I would get benched for whole games and out of politics for other things other people did. But I'm not bringing that to light. because ultimately, to me, it was just to play the game and have fun. I didn't have a college scholarship in mind. I didn't have NBA aspirations. I didn't have a football college aspiration. For me, it was just to play, because I knew that there's like places in Texas where they have a real program like Friday Night Lights, where the whole town's putting pressure on these kids every day about playing football. I didn't want that. I wanted to have
Yeah.
fun. I get to be a pretty good athlete though as I grew up. Um, didn't matter though. It wasn't. It was like I liked individual things. I liked running. I
Well,
liked swimming. I liked fighting. That's what I
yeah,
liked.
yeah. He just for me, and I know for a lot of other, he was just he was great. I loved your dad, and
He gave
he
he gave some of you guys get the best of him. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? It's
So
like if Tony Robbins is talking to you and he gets you juiced up to go win and you go win,
yeah,
and then Tony Robbins goes home and he's like, "Hey, pass the potatoes," then you
right,
know what I mean?
right. Why isn't your room clean? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so fun. Not so cool then. So one thing I remember, it was funny you were talking about name. One thing I remember right before I left, I want to say this was my ninth grade year. So this would be '83. I remember the basketball team wasn't good. So it was either that year or the year before. Basketball team wasn't good. And so the thing I remember your dad did, which was the funniest freaking thing, is he would wear his whatever he was wearing. I don't know. I guess it was a suit, a jacket.
Yeah, yeah. Sports coat.
Yeah. So every time the Cougars would do something good, he would roll up his pant leg one roll.
Yeah.
And then during timeouts, he would admonish the team, and you couldn't hear him, but you could see him pointing to his leg, like he'd only rolled it up to his calf, and, and so like somebody would hit like a big shot or make a big play, and they'd run back down the court and they'd point to Coach Dempsey and say, "Hey, you got to roll your pant leg up on that one." And I'll never forget just from
I'll
you know,
share this one with you if I can find it. Let me show you something, Mike. I've don't. You know, my brother was more of the jock than me. I mean, he was a participating jock. I'm not saying I couldn't have been. I just chose not to be. But we came from the coach. A lot of people didn't know his history before he was there, right? So they didn't know his history, and I could have done the podcast. Oh, it's the Len Dempsey podcast. Can you see this?
oh yeah.
Do you see it? Is it full screen or is it partial?
No, I see it full screen.
Okay, so
Oh,
see,
is that him on the left, right? Far left.
yeah, this is the BU.
There's the smile. Hell yeah.
He was the captain of the Boston University baseball team. They
That's a
would play
great
MIT and all
picture.
that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
What a
then after
great picture.
after this, he was a captain and top player for a United States Marine Corps team.
Wow.
And after that, he played on this like semi-pro league. Like that funny show with the guy with the curly hair. No, the semi-pro, the
Yeah,
basketball. I
yeah,
love that
yeah.
one. Will Ferrell. No, it wasn't like that. They had
Semi pro. Yeah.
So this dealership would sponsor him. They'd play in this league, and I think they won like 5 years in a row. And he coached and he played, and they had more fans than the Red Sox in Boston. So it's like saying the Cougars and the Lana Rossi soccer teams in town. It's like that fan base came over to watch the Cougars. The whole post is full to watch them, or it's just a few people in the North 40. So his pedigree in coaching was very, very, very high. And as a player, he was put in the Hall of Fame in his school, and they were talking to him about doing it at Boston University too. He chose not to play AA baseball because he felt they were looking for the Mickey Mantle, the 6'2" guy. And he got offered AA baseball, but he had a full ride to Boston University, which is a pretty expensive school, you
Yeah.
know. And
Oh
he's
yeah.
like, "No, I'm going to get my master's degree." He's like, "I'm not going to get stuck on your farm team," because he was only 5'9", but he could hit. He would play against people like Catfish Hunter and stuff. So
That's
you're,
awesome.
so
I
you're,
never
so
knew.
the,
That's awesome. I
you
never knew
didn't know
that.
this. You didn't know this. So your coach, and he even at one time when I was a kid, the Canadian Olympic team was coming through, and he came and helped him out, and they were offering him a job to go coach on the Canadian Olympic team for their basketball team because he knew one of the coaches, and he would have had to leave his Vicenza Cougars for that. And he's like, "Nah, that's just 1 year, and then where are we? I got to go look for a job. I like what I'm doing. So he never blew that up, but winning was always there. So I'm just showing you how deep that well goes. And then here's your teacher, but you didn't know he was a captain of the Marines and he was this and he was that. And he just like, I just have a Vicenza teacher. He's pretty good. You don't know what you're getting, man. You could have,
Yeah.
you could have got, something off of South Park, one of those teachers as your coach. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's just so
That
there's
would be fun.
there's a reason why that winning was so freaking consistent, because you had a guy that was very high level in his game, but he never spoke about it, because that was the way of the stoic Irish Catholic American from Boston. Not to be like, hey, look at me. It was none of that.
Yeah.
So
No,
nobody, you guys did not know who was coaching you. That's what I
no,
was.
he took that spotlight and put it on the kids every time. He never took the spotlight. It would be interesting to ask him as a coach and as a teacher. I would guess that he might have gotten more enjoyment out of coaching, a group of ragtag army kids with, most of which probably wouldn't have made, a varsity team in a big school in the States. We didn't have thoroughbreds. We didn't have college bound athletes. And for the most part, we might have it.
I guess I answered the question like no to the Canadian Olympic team. But my point is that if he went to the States, he probably could have got some college coaching gigs and made some bucks. But before this, he had a job, a very good job after the Marines, as the director of athletics for all these schools in New England or something like that. Very prestigious job, like double six-figure income in that era, right? That's what it pays today.
Yeah.
And you know what? He didn't like it. It was office work. It was pushing paper. The guy wanted to be on the court. He wanted to be by the ball. He wanted to win. And you're not winning with a big title. He didn't want to be a politician of sport. He wanted to be a player and a coach. He wanted to be on the field. I mean, the first thing we did when we moved from the States and he was tying up his baseball, we get there, and him and my mom are jogging, and he sees these guys over there jogging, the runners, sprinters, and he builds a track team out of these GIs, these Air Force guys, and he's got them all running, doing sprints, working out, because he didn't have anything to coach. He needed to coach something. So you talk about a summer with that guy. He's going to play tennis. He's going to get in a match. He's going to go. He always has to be running. And I think conversations with my dad, 32, 25, 25, 36, 37, 42, 55 in the third quarter, the eighth, the home run to the ninth of the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It was a mathematical thing in the pursuit of winning, because back home, he had juice. He had a lot of juice. He could go all over Boston because he was known, but he never cared to be that guy. He was happy being anonymously just your PE teacher coach in Italy. And that's the funny part, right?
I can still,
so people might wonder if they did get something from it. Where did it come from? That's the elixir. That's why people that might have I took those lessons and that meant something to me. I didn't listen because I was this kid. All I just remember is win. That's the side at some places. Right?
I can picture him sitting on the tailgate of y'all's, was that light blue Volvo wagon you had?
Right.
After school, I can picture him sitting on the tailgate of that thing, and he'd see you and he'd ask you, would you run the 40 in this morning? He wanted to know, was it better than the time before?
Right. Now, if you were enthusiastic, he loved you. He'd love himself a Mike Walker for sure. Mike loved ball. Dad's like, hey, so even if people were in and on outs with me or vice versa, there was one of us to like, depending what side of the road you were walking on. But it's different when you are the teacher's son.
Yeah.
And you are the coach's son, even for all the other kids that had teacher parents there, because your business is in their world.
Yeah.
Anonymity would have been exciting.
So well,
it is what it is.
I mean, there's got to be a source of pride for you though, to know that,
I'm happy what it did for other people.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like, I'm happy that this is a guy that did what he loved to do. Now, some people want to be a millionaire. They think that will complete them. But that's not what completes you. If you do what you love, and they say this so many times in business and other things, if you do what you love and you
Sure.
love what you do, then you live a complete life. I
That's
don't
what makes
care.
you rich.
I don't care if you sell.
That's what the definition of rich is
Right.
about.
I don't care if you
Wealthy
sell.
is different.
I don't care if you sell popsicles at the beach and you just like it because you like to look at attractive people in bikinis. Whatever your deal is, man, you know you're winning. It does not matter, and that's the point. It's not about who could do more or be better, because it's lonely at the top, man. When you get way high up there, it's pretty, like, I know people, some pretty high up people in this world, and it's lonely and boring. And other people are like, man, isn't it cool to be you? And they're like, nah, man, everybody wants something, or they want to hook up, or they want this, or they want tickets, or they want this.
Yeah.
And it gets a little misguided, man. So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is.
I heard Derek's story the other day of his walk with Chris Cavoli, and I didn't know Chris personally. I knew Steve, his little brother. But I'm sure that in the world that General Cavoli lives in, he probably enjoyed that conversation more than anything. Just being Chris Cavoli from Vicenza High School for a few minutes, it probably meant more to him than anything else he was doing that day.
I've met several rock stars, movie stars, pretty interesting people, just because I had a camera. And even a lot of it wasn't for money. It was just because I was filming or doing a favor for a friend. And it got interesting. You get to see these people and you're like, they're just people. Like, a good one, Clint Eastwood. I'm watching TV with one of my soon to be exes at the time. And I go, man, I really like Clint Eastwood. He and I would get along. Me and Clint Eastwood would be buddies. She's like, you'll never meet him. Well, 3 months later, I call her up. I go, guess who I'm going to meet? Because I met this guy that needed help filming a reality show for TV. He was one of the Raiders. And my friend knew him. And they're like, oh, Len can film and he can do this. Like, okay. So, guy with camera, just go over there. It's not like a major CBC, NBC, whatever production at the time. It was aired, but there's like a lot of stuff that's only aired once. But he was trying to, it's like the get rich quick of TV. I'll make my own show and then I'll get it aired and see if there's buys. But it takes a lot of money to really promote something. And TV is really, that's a dying market right now. It's becoming YouTube anyways. This is the new TV channel. So
Yep.
we go to the AT&T golf thing. There's Kevin Costner. There's George Lopez. I filmed him. I didn't talk to Kevin Costner, but I did film George Lopez and a few other people. And then, because we were guests of these people that owned all these banks, and they would take their whales, their very wealthy clients, and give them these houses on Pebble Beach, to stay there, like these $20,000 night places. And they were just treating us VIP, and they liked me filming them, and it was great. I was just doing this for them. And who was it? Yeah, so we're going to go film Clint. And I was hanging out with another guy. I'll save that for another story, another big UFC fighter. But we're down in LA, and they go, Clint wants to meet you, because we miss our time to film it. So we come all the way back, and we don't have credentials, like the filming credentials. We just had photo credentials, and we didn't have a pass to get to the back of the clubhouse where Clint was. But my buddy was a Raider, and he played in the Super Bowl. And so I said, just show him your ring. So he's like, look at my weight. And the cops were like, okay, go ahead, sir. And we just walked back there.
Right.
And here's Clint. And I'm just like ready to meet my buddy. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, Clint Eastwood. I'm like, hey, what's up, bud? And he was just like, hey. And he was just happy to see me. And he's just like, we're talking. And then the other guy's supposed to be interviewing it. He's all nervous, like, oh. And I'm like, it's Clint Eastwood. So what? He just wants to be a guy, man. He's being a guy. Let's be a guy with Clint Eastwood. Stop doing that. He's like, are you interviewing me? Like, no, it's him. Oh. So we film, and then
they deal with that all the time. They deal with people, fluttering around them,
right.
and right. I'm sure they just want you to just,
So he could feel me, because my energy was, let's just hang out and be guys. Because I said, if there's anything this guy at the top wants to be, is just to be the way it was before. Don't tell me what about my movies. Don't repeat what everybody says. Just treat me like Clint. Just be a guy. Let's have a beer. Like, hey man, how about this weather? And that's what he was after. And
Yeah.
after we filmed him, he's like, "Hey, you guys want to go hang out?" My friend's like, "Oh, we have to go, Mr. Eastwood." And he ran off. He's like, "Len, what'd you do?" I go, "Yeah, he's gonna hang out. Why are you running away? You're afraid to hang out with him? You're all nervous. You played in the Super Bowl and Clint Eastwood makes you nervous. I mean, I don't get it. I'm just a PE teacher's son with a camera over here. It's just a guy, and it's not because I'm
Right.
trying to be arrogant or devalue him,
Right.
because I found this, whether you're a big corporate executive, you're a big CEO, you're the homecoming king like Derek Gould, he's a celebrity. Derek Gould, man, that hot, I was joking with him. I said, "You're the guy from
He was
Greece."
the cool. Yeah, I
He was
told
the
him that in
Greece,
his email.
Greece,
Yeah.
he was Greece number 2. Who's that guy? Where can I get one? That was all the girls like seeing him drive on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
But my point is that he's just a guy too. He's a great guy, and most people are. And so we started high school. Maybe you are a 2 or 3 star general. You're, a female general, a male general. We have a couple of very wonderfully high-ranking women in the military. I'm very proud of them. Del Rosso and Gonzalez, both of them.
Yeah.
Actually, they were there. Yvette was there when you were there.
Yeah.
Yvette
Yep.
Gonzalez was there,
Yep.
and I think the Del Rosso might have been there. And guess what? One's an admiral, one's a general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's over in right now. She's in Kuwait. I said, "Man, I'd love to have you on, but I don't know what regulations of communications while you're on duty. I don't want anything that like comes conflicting with the way the world news and stuff operates. Let's do it when you're home in civvy land, right?"
Right.
But she's really cool, man, and
Yeah.
she's approachable,
Yeah.
because if you're at the top with all this pressure and all this stuff on you, you just want someone to like, "Hey, can I talk to you?"
Yep.
Not that, because
Yep.
we don't
Yep.
get to be that person so much. And then that's what you see. Rock stars and movie stars, they're all tired of you see the pressure, and they're like, "Get off me, I want to be famous, look how cool I am." Okay, I shouldn't have done that. Now they're really bugging me. It's like,
Yeah. And then and then it's all that with another layer of, if Admiral Gonzalez can get that with an extra layer of, oh yeah, we used to, we used to be little punk kids in Italy together. That's even, I mean, that takes it to a level that puts us in a group that a lot of
she's an
people
admiral.
can't understand.
She's an admiral now, but she was on the track team, or
Yeah.
she was in the same PE class with one of us. You know what I'm saying? And
I
that
mean,
was
one of my best
formative
friends.
years. Good.
Yeah, one of my best friends from Germany. He ended up being a colonel, and and I used to goof with him. I'm like, he's a brigade commander in charge of hundreds of soldiers, and this is dude, would cover my eyes while I'm driving through an intersection, so I can't see what I'm doing. I mean, so it's cool. It's cool to have these relationships, to see people skyrocket and to do well, and just take pride in how people all did well, and that makes
I
I'm
want to
just
see. I want to see what can Vicenza do for you. How does it influence your life, negatively, positively? What effect did it have? We didn't all land on our feet. I've had some bad years. I've had a couple divorces. I'm not perfect. And some people might say, "Well, you're confident, you talk well," or something. Well, I do a lot of freaking podcasts. I think anybody would talk well after they do a couple hundred podcasts. I do it for MMA. I did it for the Navy stuff, my ships. So that's why I'm not at a loss for words with you, Mike. I'm not sitting here going,
this is
like,
awesome.
right.
It's awesome. The only criticism I have is why did it take you so long? This is brilliant, and I look forward to all the.
I was doing other ones, and I needed, and I thought about it, and I won't wait for permission. I could talk to other people, though. I don't know what I think about that, and they may not jump on board. I'm like, I get time to talk about it with you, bro. I implement. I've always been an implementer.
I have my other show and tell item before we have to go. So I was not there long enough to get the letter jacket, but do you remember these? I'm gonna hold this up.
Oh, cool, dude.
Remember these?
Yeah. Is that the
Remember
prize?
you'd buy a windbreaker and take it to whatever the place was, and they would stitch what year? Let's see if I can get the bottom.
Yeah, if you were in the Navy, you had those silky dragon jackets, but this was an Italy jacket for sure.
This was just a
A
regular old,
windbreaker.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty
So
cool, man.
dug that out of a box some time ago, and I've forgotten I had it.
That's pretty cool. Well, it's been awesome having you on here, Mike. Who do you want
My
to see next?
pleasure.
Who do you want to see next? Who's
Oh
my
my gosh, I'm going to enjoy everyone. I'm going to enjoy everyone, and these are great. And the one thing I did want to ask you about is make sure you advertise this thing. Um,
I can.
I haven't seen it pop up, but
Oh,
make sure
I
you
added actually follow our Facebook page that I just built. I have 16 followers. But
Okay, I'll look
send
it
this
up.
to what I ask is anybody that's on here like you, send this to your friends, you
Good,
know,
I will. I will.
and that'll help it because, Derek's, I must have messaged like 80 people to get it cooking. And then it's got like more views. And then I'm going to do that later with Lisa's. And I started doing it on Facebook, but it has its limits because it's like you're starting to spam people. I'm like, I'm not trying to spam, I'm trying to send it to them. But Facebook is so much trying to get you to pay to put anything out there that you do.
Yeah,
But
it'll get traction. It's great. It's so much fun.
leave who you want on here in the comments, people, and then you will win that jacket from Mike and a chance to be on the VHS Cocktail Hour. Coming
And
soon on Radio K.
don't forget the first ever Cougarland trivia question, the name of the sporting goods store in Camisano, where we all went to get our Diodores and our Sergio Tacchini apparel. You can come up with a prize for the winner, but
that it's your jacket, and you get to buy a case of beer and mail it to Mike Walker. That's the prize. No, I'm kidding.
there you go. I'll get some cheap Peroni or something that you got to have like right before it freezes to enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll start selling letter jackets for the podcast.
Right.
I'm not trying to make money on this, man.
You'll get the Class in the Snow patches, and I'll put them on my winter code. But hey, so if you're ever anywhere near DC, Philly, Maryland, if you're ever on the East Coast, please let me know. I would absolutely put everything on my tab, and
Mike
this has just been a
on
fun
Facebook.
for me. I will leave you with this: Go Cougars, beat Naples.